So we're in the Ancombe catchment area near to Brigg on Hannah Dale's farm. Hannah, incredible story here of rewilding. So what are you doing?
So my husband and I inherited the farm about 10 years ago, sadly, after Jack, my husband, lost his father. It's a really difficult farm to make any money on. The land is really heavy clay, it sits very wet over winter, and it bakes really hard and dry in the summer. And for a few years we did try to farm it commercially without very much success, and so we decided that we felt it could offer more to local biodiversity and to nature than it could to farming, and so we've gone down a route of doing something a little bit different with it, and it's sort of a rewilding project now.
And in the past 3 to 4 years you've seen an amazing change in the area. Both wildlife, nature, habitat has changed completely, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's actually really encouraging how quickly nature responds when you give it a little bit of space. So in a very, very short period of time, and we've seen a doubling in the number of different bird species that we're seeing on the farm, and a huge increase in the abundance as well. So, not just the different types of species, but just more and more of individual birds as well. And same across insects. We dug some ponds, and we've had recorded 18 species of dragonfly and damselfly on the ponds. Huge increases in the number of butterflies. It's just been really exciting to see the changes happening over such a short period of time.
Now, the latest introduction are beavers. So how many beavers have you got now in the project?
So it's just a pair, a male and a female. They're 2 to 3 years, so we're hoping that there might be more than two in hopefully within a fairly short space of time, but time will tell.
So why beavers? Had you always had this in the back of your mind that you would like to introduce beavers to the project?
So beavers they're known as a keystone species, and the reason for that is that when you take a beaver out of an environment, it doesn't just remove that species, it has a knock-on impact to lots and lots of different species of plant, bird, insect, amphibian, reptile, all across the spectrum. And when you reintroduce them, the habitats that they engineer and the environments that they create are able to support a huge diversity of different species. So, we've seen across the country lots of different rewilding projects that have introduced beavers. So, yeah, absolutely, we were really keen to do that, and we've consulted with lots of different people to talk about what the potential options are, and we're really excited to bring the beavers here, and we can't wait to see what changes they make.
I know you had your doubts. You didn't know whether this would be quite suitable for beavers. So what changed your mind?
I think the perception of beavers on kind of meandering rivers and, these beautiful hillside streams and that kind of thing is where you imagine to see beavers. But actually, we did a lot of research before we brought the beavers here. I've been on a trip to Bavaria where they're actually living wild in the landscape for the past 50 years. And I've visited a number of different projects as well, like this one, enclosed projects, and actually they're hugely adaptable species, and as long as you can provide them with deep water, at least a metre in depth, and lots of riparian trees, willows and forage for them to eat, actually they're very adaptable and they can pretty much set up home anywhere. So here we've got a pond, and we've also got a dike that runs through the site, and we've already started to see them building some dams across the dike, slowing the flow down, filtering the water and changing the habitat within a very, very short space of time.
I was really excited to see they'd been gnawing through some willow, I think it was. What was it like for you the first time you'd seen they'd been busy and active?
Oh, it's so exciting. Every day we're like coming up and seeing what's different, and that was really the first sign that we saw of them. So beavers really like willow. It's a native species, and actually for millions and millions of years willows evolved alongside beavers, and they respond to being coppiced by the beavers by sending out really vigorous growth, lots and lots of different shoots, and that's really what the beavers like to eat. They take off these, so they're basically farming it. They're farming the willow, and those species that grow in this kind of habitat, the type of food that beavers like to eat, they want to be coppiced. They've evolved to be coppiced, and they respond in a really positive way.
But what do they eat?
So they do eat lots of the plants that grow in the pond, so the reeds and water plants and things like that. But they actually gnaw the bark from the willow, and they eat the bark.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what they eat. And then somebody said to me, "Can you find out what beaver poo is like?" And I couldn't see any anywhere.
No. So yeah. They actually just poo straight into the water, and it's almost like sawdust. It just dissipates very quickly, and so you can't really go beaver poo spotting, unfortunately.
Now, the other thing about it is, which I think people are concerned about, they are wild animals, but you actually keep them enclosed, and that's been quite key to this project, hasn't it?
Yeah, so at the moment in Britain, you can't just release beavers into the wild. They can only be released into projects like ours. So we have a 70-acre enclosure. Natural England specify the particular requirements of the fence, and it's very prescriptive. So it has to have an overhang, it has to have a skirt on the inside to prevent them from digging down or trying to climb out of the fence. So yes, they're very much staying within this enclosure. We do twice weekly checks all the way around the fence just to make sure that there are no breaches or anything like that, but so far they seem to have enough habitat and enough within the 70-acre area that we've given them.
I was going to say, it's a massive area to enclose, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It's been a big project, but we're really passionate about it. I think, one of the reasons that we've done this, there's just, we've experienced such devastating loss of wildlife and diversity in this country, and you read books and hear people talking even a generation ago about what we've lost, and I think that's really been the driving factor for us. We just want to see some of this coming back.
I was looking at an area a little while ago you were showing me where you sort of enticed the beavers to start building a dam, and they did what they were expected to do, didn't they?
Yeah, so we did, along the dike that runs through the site, we sort of built a bit of an artificial dam just to back the water up a little bit, to give them some deeper water, a kind of starting point really, because obviously they're coming into an environment that they don't know. And quite quickly the water just cuts through those channels, and the beavers have responded by damming it up, and you can see where the water behind the dam is much higher and the water coming through it. And interestingly as well, not only do they the pools and the environment they engineer, not only is that brilliant for lots of the different species, the dam systems also filter water, so the water coming through and leaving the site it's clearer and cleaner than the water that enters the site. And the other amazing thing about beavers is slowing the flow of water and retaining the water on our land will reduce the amount of water coming through in flood situations. And obviously, as we experience the impact of climate change and start to see more and more of these flood events, that's really important for protecting villages and towns downstream.
I suppose with something like this, it's a controlled environment. You sort of semi-control where the beavers are building the dams, and that's what perhaps some people might be concerned about if they are just out in the wild. They could be building dams where we don't need them.
Yes, I think for our purposes here, we have sort of started them off because that's where the dike is, but what we are now wanting to do really is letting them kind of landscape the environment for themselves. And I think what we've learned from other beaver projects is actually expect the unexpected. But there's a lot to be learnt from places like Bavaria, where beavers have been wild in the landscape for the last 50 years, and that is just the same as here. It's a very intensively farmed agricultural landscape, and they've managed to find systems and ways to live alongside the beavers. So there are methods that you can use to pipe water through beaver dams, so that as much as the beaver keeps building the dam, the water still escapes, so that if there are drainage problems on agricultural land, they have specialists over there that if a beaver sets up a dam in a place that's going to cause a farmer or a landowner an issue, they'll go and assess it, and they have compensation schemes to compensate farmers for any land that's taken over by the beavers, or if it really is an issue, then they're removed and relocated. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from that, and hopefully get to a point where we can live alongside beavers and benefit from the massive improvements in water management, in biodiversity that they bring, without upsetting really anything else that we're already doing in the landscape.